Welcome back, my fellow agents. It is I, X7, the host of the Xenorama, the podcast of heroes and monsters, and also your agent of animated awesome. Today is Monday. That means it's a time to talk about the fifth episode of the 1966 syndicated television series Marvel's Superheroes. Today's a pretty fun one, as it is the return of Captain America. So they have used Avengers Volume 1, number 7. Really? I've got the book right here. I read it. So I would be to have forewarned is uh, to be forewarned is to have four arms, according to the Beast. It's number 4. I thought that. So yes, Avengers number 4, and then it's also Tales of Suspense number 59, which was the first issue of Captain America, or his first solo tale as he came back. But it essentially, we get to see Captain America we don't see him in an iceberg. We don't see the Submariner throwing him into the water because of the Native Americans, the Alaskans, that were worshiping him. And just because Namor's had a fit of pique, he throws him in there. And now at this point in time, the invaders didn't exist at all but in Marvel continuity, both Cap and Namor knew each other well. And the only other being that would have been able to tell them they knew each other was in hibernation somewhere, that being the original Human Torch, Jim Hammond. So here we go. Now, the art in the animation in here is very sketchy. There's a lot of action and stuff, but there's some shots in here that are just weird. But for the most part, it's pretty right out of the book. The first 2/3 of this episode are right out of the Avengers 4. And here is a shot of it so you can see what happened there. They even use a lot of the same language, but they cut out a lot. And Cap wakes up and he immediately, starts to fight the Avengers, but then realizes that something. But he can never forget the name Captain America. And they ask him how he got there. And of course, this has changed a little bit. There's no mention of Baron Zemo. There's no mention of how Bucky sacrificed himself, really. The plane is a drone, but it's just got loose on its own. So even then, drones were pestering people. Right out of the comic book there, Bucky jumps on it. This is out of the comic book. It was the best I could get. So, and I didn't start. Before we get too much further in here, let's go with the bit of the theme song. So we have to have that, right?
When Captain America throws his mighty shield, all those who chose to oppose his shield must yield.
So, but he says the drone explodes before he could get to Bucky, and he went into the water and sank down, 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 and out. And then he woke up here, and which is pretty much how it happened. But again, no mention of Baron Zemo, nothing like that. Bucky's dead, although he's not really dead. But nobody knew that for 20 years at least when Cap came back in 64. Probably 30 years. I don't know or care. So, but of course the Avengers don't believe him, so they're going to have a fight with him, or at least test his mettle, if you will. He gives Giant Man the old monkey flip, and then they decide you're the real deal. Coloring here, a little off. And these faces, as you'll see, they introduce themselves. They get a lot of nice zappy zaps, but Thor stands still, but the lightning goes all around him. The acting is, Cap's got great acting. I think Thor is good and Iron Man's good. Giant Man changes his voice from when he's giant, because he introduces his powers as Giant and Ant-Man. He doesn't say he's Ant-Man, but just says Giant Man. But he prefers to be Giant Man. But he has a big booming voice, and it's very stiff. I don't know who does. And then there's the Wasp, who they talk about taking pills. In the comic books, they say capsules, but maybe pills was not the best idea to do. And they first it was gas, then it was pills, and then they could just do it. The PIM particles. And Janet's telling everybody how handsome Cap is and what's he gonna do now. This is right out of the comic book as well, but look at the way that it's just, and they tilt their heads a lot right here. I mean, it's weird. Iron Man does it, Cap does it. You'll see this. They do use a lot of shots over and over again. I get it. They were doing it in a hurry and on a budget. Marvel could have probably negotiated a better deal. At least Gantry Lawrence did a pretty good job for that first season of Spider-Man. It's much better animated, even though there were shots that were reused all the time. I mean, that happened a lot in animation with all the studios, not just Gantry Lawrence. So they get back and they leave Cap. Cap's asleep in the sub, and they just leave him there. Even in the comic book, they leave him. I've never understood that. And right away, the Avengers get out. There's a mob of people. They were looking for the Hulk and the Submariner, and then they get turned to stone. They get zapped. Then Cap wakes up and comes out. I love this shot though. It's a great shot. It's of him just looking at the New York City of 20 years after he was frozen, and just thinking how big and wonderful it is. And yep, it's right out of the comic book with a little more added to it. So he sees the statues, but doesn't think anything real wrong. And he sees the United Nations and the cop there. He thinks the girls are still pretty, except for their interesting bouffant hairdos. It's kind of a bulbous bouffant, wouldn't you say, Cap? Bulbous bouffant? Macadamia. And there's the I've got something in my eye cop, and he's right out of the book. And he sends Cap to a hotel because Cap doesn't know there's an Avengers mansion. So that's what we see next. There's Rick Jones, the missing link in many Marvel movies. There's no Rick Jones. I don't think there's been a Rick Jones, which is sad because Rick's an interesting character. Fortunately, the comic book or the cartoon leaves out all of Rick's jive talking. I mean, he was no snapper car, but Cap was not picking up the beats Rick was laying down. If you catch my drift. But Pachycephalosaurus. There's Higgintooth. Cap, of course, thinks he's Bucky reincarnated because he looks like him, but he would have. Rick's like 16 or 17 here. So, yeah, he could be. But he's giving him another spring in his step. So they want to go look at pictures because Cap thinks there's something weird going on with the Avengers now. And Rick's going to call the Teen Brigade, which I wonder what happened to all of the Teen Brigade back in the day. It seems like they just kind of vanished. Now, they've probably done stories about them, which is cool. I don't mind stuff like that. And there is Bull, which I'm calling Bull on because that's actually in the comic book. That's Vuk, who is from Dabari. He is what is affectionately known as the Broccoli Heads, after Jean Grey, after the Phoenix Force had possessed Jean Grey and turned all Dark Phoenix and was hungry and ate their son, which went supernova and wiped out their planet. But in 1964, there was no Dark Phoenix. There might not even have been the X-Men yet. So he was just a broccoli head, and he turned people to stone because he was scared of them. And that's how the rumor of Medusa started, even though there probably was a real Medusa and not the Inhuman Medusa. You know what I mean. This is all dropped. That's just Bull, who's a villain. He's a gangster. So off they go to get him. They get into a fight. This is right out of the comic books. I like the sound effects they use here. So, Vuk is trying to zap Cap and turn him to stone, but can't get a bead on him because he moves too fast. See? And he just beats him up, but, he's just a human being. He's not an alien. They left out the whole subplot of the Submariner blackmailing Vuk into turning into the Avengers into stone, and he would get him a spaceship back. I don't know why. It's much more interesting than him fighting gangsters. But see, look here, snaky hair. That's Vuk right there. That's not Bull, but and Rick's there, and then Cap goes to sleep again. This is a repeat from the time he was in the hotel. But they're like, "Will you go stand? We're going to go look for this guy, and would you stand guard at the Avengers mansion?" Okay, and off they go. And there's the Avengers mansion, which looks like no Avengers mansion ever. Don't know what that was or supposed to be. But we do get to see we can see Jarvis for the first time, which is always nice. Edwin Jarvis, um, who had to have seen Cap when he was in the service. Uh, if he was still in the service, he probably isn't anymore. And and then at the old building, the narration is a little weird here. There's Bull again with his ultrasonic weapon or his stone freeze ray. Freeze ray! This is a nice shot. Really nice. Cap just perusing. Now, this is from Tales of Suspense, uh, Volume 1, number 59. So that art is by Jack Kirby as well, because Jack just did everything. So there's an Iron Man here, but he's a bad Iron Man. He's bad. He's bad. Because Bull goes and attacks the Avengers mansion. They kidnap Jarvis, and Jarvis says, "No, Cap's on duty." Like, so everyone knows it. And Foom, friends of old Marvel, but we're at the Merry Marvel Marching Society phase. Who knew? I think Gantry Lawrence probably has a claim to Foom, don't they? And Foop. Cap looking disinterested, but again, there's that weird head tilt. And boy, that's a Kirby picture, if I've ever never seen one. And once more sleeping gas, but this time Cap just blocks it with his shield, and everybody else falls asleep. Although he finally gets to the guy in the pseudo Iron Man suit, and they're shooting all kinds of things. There's just a lot of action in here where nothing happens. They don't break it up with any talk or anything really, except for Bull saying, "Get him! Use the gas! You're in a suit. He can't hurt you. Fire the lasers! Lasers!" And they have sound effects for everything. Finally, Cap punches him twice, and that's the end of Bull. He feels like he's a little out of shape because he's going to be sore and stiff in the morning when the Avengers get back. And they do get back, and they ask him how their search was fruitless. He asks him how he was, and he's like, "No, everything went fine here." And they say, "You look like you've got a spring in your step. You're not as stiff as you were before." To which the Wasp says, "Or as stiff as you were when we found you." And everyone laughs. Ha, 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 ha. It's the end. So it's a really fun little episode. It's nice to see animated or stop motion animated Avengers. Actually, what do they call them? The sleep animated? No, but motion comics. It was kind of fun. The acting is a little iffy, especially with Giant Man, and Thor's a little bombastic as well. But for the most part, it's a fun episode, and I would have loved it seeing it as a kid, especially seeing it was an Avenger. It was really an Avengers story. But there we have it, my fellow agents. And tomorrow, I was fortunate enough. Well, I've been fortunate to go to a comic book store called Time Warp, which started out as Mile High Comics here in Colorado for a long time, 50 plus years, and I've known the owner since '84 of Time Warp, and he recently is retiring. So tomorrow's episode is going to be about comic books in general. Well, it's going to be about the store because I wish I had pictures of the actual original Mile High Comics because that store was amazing. So anyway, that's our plan for tomorrow. I hope you've liked, shared, and subscribed and left a comment. That would be very, very much appreciated. I meant to say that earlier and got distracted yet again. But overall, this is a fun episode. And until our next assignment, get your mighty shield ready because you never know when. Oops, I didn't want to do that one. You'll never know when.
It is led to a fight, and a duel is due, and the red and the white and the blue will come through when Captain America shows his mighty shield.